In this video, we're going to talk about what you need to apply to professional graduate programs that are applied, meaning they train students in a specific skill set in a particular career path. Because I work in a research program, I'm not very familiar with these types of programs and their applications. However, this should give you a great idea of what is required and how to approach applying. If you are interested in applying to any type of medical school or law school, you should seek out professional advising services on campus. These are very specific applications and often use a common application system. I don't have much experience with these programs, so I'm not going to go into detail. The best advice I can offer is to 1. Conduct a search on your university's website for pre-health or pre-law advising. 2. Research different types of programs and look up their requirements. And 3. Set up an advising appointment with the pre-health or pre-law offices and come prepared with a list of questions you have about applying. This is the same for any other type of doctoral program other than a PhD program. You should seek advising and conduct internet research on application requirements. The rest of this presentation will be general information on how to go about applying to professional or applied master's programs. Again, I'm not an expert in this, so this will be general information on how to go about it. Remember, professional or applied programs are the ones that give you a set of specific skills to practice in a certain career. Here on the slide, I have listed some examples of professional master's degree. Remember, if it doesn't have an MS, Master's of Science, or an MA, Master's of Arts, it's most likely a professional applied degree program. But you will need to look into the program's information to be sure and also check what are the application requirements. For applied master's programs, here is the general list of application materials you could be asked to submit. There is always an application and application fee, and you'll have to submit your official college transcripts. Now, what may be different depending on the program is what written materials you have to turn in. If you are required to turn in a personal statement or a written statement, you will want to consult the application requirements for the length of the statement and what should be included in it. Some programs may also ask you to write short answers to specific prompts. Regardless of what you have to write, you should always start early on it and get feedback from faculty or individuals who have completed that program. You should never turn in application materials that haven't been reviewed by an expert. It takes a lot of time and money to apply to graduate programs, so you want to make sure everything is in the best possible shape. All programs will require at least 2 letters of recommendation, and some may require or allow 3. Programs may specify who they want letters from, such as faculty or supervisors. Since these are professional programs, they are most likely going to want letters from individuals who have overseen your work, either in an academic or a workplace setting. They are going to need to speak to your academic capabilities and the ability to complete tasks thoughtfully and to a high standard. If you have worked on a research project with a faculty member, then they would be a good person to ask. Graduate programs have historically required the GRE exam. It's like an SAT or SAT exam, but for graduate school. However, many programs no longer require it, so it's best to check the application requirements well in advance to make sure if you need to plan to take the GRE. And lastly, some programs may want to see a resume. If this is the case, I suggest you reach out to the Career Advising Office to get help with your resume. Again, anything written is going to make an impression on the review committee, and you want to make sure that you have a beautifully constructed resume as well as an application. Graduate school application deadlines will vary by program, so it is best to look up the deadline and plan a minimum of 6 to 8 months out. It takes a lot of work to apply to graduate school and to get the required components of an application. Here we have an example of an 8-month timeline with the application deadline toward the beginning of January, but some programs have November or December deadlines, and others may have multiple deadlines throughout the year. So for this timeline, in March through August, you are identifying potential programs and researching application requirements to make sure you have the necessary prerequisites to apply. If you do not, you can work towards completing those. Once you have decided to apply, you should identify who you're going to ask for letters of recommendation and either set up a meeting with them or send them an email to let them know your plans and ask if they would be willing to write you a letter in the coming months. During this time, you may be preparing for the GREs if required by the programs you're applying to. By October, you should ask your faculty recommenders to review any written statements. Once they are in almost final draft form, you can send them all your application materials and formally request they write you a letter of recommendation. Note that sending them all your application materials helps them tailor their letter of support. You want to give faculty a minimum of 2 weeks' notice before the application due date, but 4 weeks or more would be preferable. You would submit the final application materials by the deadline and then keep your recommenders informed of any decisions that have come through. When you apply to graduate school, there are a limited number of spots that programs have to accept students, so you should not bank on easily getting into a program. You must take the time to work on your application so that you are competitive. In order to be competitive, you need a decent undergraduate grades or GPA, but that's not all. You will need to make sure you have the proper training and experience, whether that be an undergraduate degree or work experience. For example, some masters in public health programs require 1 to 2 years of full-time work experience in a healthcare setting. You will also need those letters of support from faculty or prior supervisors. Avoid getting letters from family, church members, or friends of the family who have not overseen your work and cannot speak to your ability to complete academic studies. Note that any written statements and letters of recommendation are going to be weighted heavily. That is, you could have a 4.0 GPA, but that doesn't mean that you'll get admitted to your chosen program. Thus, you should work diligently on building strong relationships with faculty, as well as taking the time to write and rewrite any written statements. So, just remember, when deciding to apply to a professional master's program, you want to make sure that the degree will get you to a specific career goal that you have clearly identified. That is, make sure you actually need the degree to get into a specific job and that it will be worth the time and cost to complete it. Deciding to apply to a professional master's program should be taken seriously. It's not like applying to an undergraduate program where there are many spaces. It is competitive and you need to approach it as such. Don't wait to the last minute to apply, or don't wake up one morning and decide to apply with only 2 weeks to get everything turned in. Most likely, you wouldn't have a strong application and you may annoy your recommenders. And finally, get help from those with expertise. While it is fine to ask someone to proofread your materials, it is best to get someone with expertise in the program you're applying to or from a faculty member who can provide substantial feedback to strengthen your application materials.